The moment Daniel Foster stepped into the gleaming lobby of the medical center, he felt the weight of his own heartbeat echo through his chest like a fist pounding on a locked door. He had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Walk in. Sign the papers. Leave quietly. No dramatics. No goodbyes. Just the sterile finality of a decision he'd convinced himself was necessary. He had spent months believing that severing old connections would somehow free him from the memories he'd worked so hard to bury. He didn't expect hesitation. He definitely didn't expect softness. And he absolutely didn't expect a child. Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the way unexpected moments can change a life, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It helps more people find stories that remind them they're not alone. Daniel scanned the lobby, trying to focus only on the glass doors ahead. The modern space felt too bright, too open, like it could expose the cracks in him he tried to keep hidden. His navy suit fit perfectly, every seam intentional, because he believed that looking composed was half the battle of feeling composed. But today, even the crisp lines of his vest couldn't stop his hands from trembling. He pressed them into his pockets, inhaled deeply, and stepped forward. All he had to do was walk straight out of the building and not look back. He was ready for that, until he saw them. A woman stood near the center of the lobby, her posture composed but her expression carrying that quiet weariness that came from having lived through too many unexpected turns. Beside her, a little girl in a mint green dress clutched the woman's hand but stared openly at Daniel, her eyes bright and unwavering. Something in the child's gaze, soft, curious, oddly knowing, made Daniel pause without understanding why. He tried to continue walking, but the little girl pointed at him with the confident certainty of someone who had absolutely no doubts about her instincts. Her voice was soft yet rang clearly in the quiet hall. She said something that made the woman beside her smile gently before following her daughter's gaze to Daniel. He froze. His mind scrambled, his heart twisted, and suddenly the door behind him felt more like an escape hatch than anything else. Staying wasn't part of the plan. Getting involved with strangers wasn't either. Yet his feet didn't move. There was something about the girl. Something about the way she looked at him as if she recognized something he hadn't allowed himself to acknowledge in years. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight, and before he knew it, he felt himself being drawn toward them, not by obligation, not by politeness, but by a pull he couldn't explain away. The air around him felt thick as he approached. The woman's eyes softened with a mixture of gratitude and curiosity, as though she sensed his internal battle. But it was the child who anchored him. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with a seriousness that didn't belong on someone her age. And then, without hesitation, she stepped closer. What she said in that moment cracked something open inside him, something he didn't even realize was still intact. She told him he looked like someone who needed a friend. It was simple. Innocent. But it hit him with the force of a memory he tried to bury, another little voice, another small hand, another life he hadn't been able to protect. He felt his chest tighten painfully. He had come here today to finalize the paperwork that would erase the last legal connection to someone he lost long ago. He thought removing the reminder would help him breathe again. But now, confronted by this unexpected child's kindness, Daniel felt the edges of his carefully controlled world start to crumble. He hadn't expected to meet a child. And he definitely hadn't expected her to read him so easily. He managed to stay because walking away now felt like turning his back on something he had been unknowingly seeking, a moment of grace he didn't believe he deserved. As the child's mother introduced herself, her voice soft, steady, almost musical, Daniel felt the heavy shame of how small and cold his earlier intention suddenly seemed. The woman explained that they were here for a follow-up appointment for the little girl, Lily, who had recently recovered from a complicated illness. She spoke with the quiet strength of someone who had carried her child through fear and uncertainty. Daniel listened, feeling the ache of recognition. He knew what it was like to stand helplessly beside a hospital bed. He knew the helplessness, the bargaining, the hope that flickered even when everything else felt dark. When Lily let go of her mother's hand and slipped her small fingers into Daniel's, something inside him fractured, and then, strangely, steadied. He hadn't felt a small hand in years. His son's hand had been the last. He remembered the tiny freckles, the warmth, the trust. And trust was what broke him the most. He had lost his son in an accident that replayed in his mind every night. It had been 2 years, but grief had a way of folding time, trapping him in the same moment over and over. He blamed himself. Every day. Every hour. He thought cutting legal ties with the past would allow him to start over. Instead, standing here with Lily, his heart felt something he almost didn't recognize, a flicker of life. He found himself asking gentle questions, about her favorite colors, the toy she carried in her little backpack, the white bow tied around her dress. And Lily answered with the open-hearted honesty only children could give. Her mother watched, her expression shifting from polite patience to quiet astonishment. Daniel stayed longer than he intended. Every minute tugged him deeper into the unexpected tenderness of the moment. And when Lily excitedly pulled him toward the large windows to show him the garden outside, he followed without hesitation. He felt the faintest spark of purpose returning. The woman, her name was Claire, later told him that Lily had always been perceptive, always somehow drawn to people who needed a little light. Daniel smiled sadly, thinking how children often saw truths adults spent their lives avoiding. He didn't tell them about his son, not yet. He didn't tell them why he had come to the medical center in the first place. But something about being near them softened the jagged edges of his grief. He realized Claire and Lily weren't just distracting him, they were reminding him he was still human, still capable of connection, still capable of being seen without collapsing. When Lily tugged at his sleeve again and told him he looked lonely, Daniel felt tears burn behind his eyes. Not the heavy, painful kind, but the kind that felt like release. The sun was beginning to set, painting the lobby with amber light, when Claire invited him to walk them to their car. Daniel agreed, even though he wasn't sure if his voice would hold steady if he spoke. Outside, the breeze carried the scent of summer grass and something like hope. Lily skipped ahead, humming a tune that drifted softly in the warm air. At the car, Claire hesitated, then gently asked him if he was all right. Her tone wasn't probing, just genuinely concerned. It had been a very long time since someone had asked him that in a way that felt sincere. He almost lied. He almost said he was fine. But Lily leaned against his leg, looking up with those earnest eyes, and the truth slipped out before he could contain it. He didn't tell the whole story, just enough that Claire understood he was carrying something heavy. She didn't pry. She simply placed a hand over his for a brief second, offering silent understanding. Sometimes that meant more than any words could. When they drove away, Daniel stood in the parking lot much longer than he needed to. He felt the cool metal of the paperwork still tucked into his vest pocket, the forms he had been moments away from signing. But now, he couldn't bring himself to move. He realized he didn't want to erase the past. He wanted to heal it. And maybe, just maybe, this unexpected encounter was the beginning of that. For the first time in 2 years, he felt a flicker of a reason to try. And that alone was worth staying for. If this story touched your heart even a little, go ahead and like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like this grow when people who feel deeply help them reach others who need them.